Okay, so what I'll do in this video is show how to connect to a Ppowerflex 525 drive over Ethernet and how to run the wizard and basically configure it for use. So what we're going to do is click on Discover, and then I have an Ethernet IP network set up, the driver. I'm going to wait. The one that I have is the 237, so I'm going to click on that, say OK. It's going to connect to it. It's going to tell me that there's a difference between the physical device, the real drive, and the settings inside this software. So I'm going to retain the active values, which are the drive values. Let's go with that. And here's a picture of the drive. What I'd like to do first is add this drive to my project, which is the workspace that I'm in right now. When I do that, I'll see there's a green box right here that lights up the drive picture, and there's a green bar across the top, and that tells me that I have imported it into the project and I'm online with it. So the first thing I'll do is I'll click on the wizards. Now, sometimes you'll get an error message here when it starts up, and it's related to the minimum or maximum speed settings in the drive. So if you were going to set up a brand new drive, you might just select that reset drive option when it first started up. What I've found is you'll get a fault. You can click on parameters, go down to that setting and change it. Let me show you what that looks like real quick. So if I click on parameters, the one that usually faults is parameter 43. So if I was to set this to 20 right now, let's see if I can make it fault. Then I'm going to go back to the wizard and try to run it. And here it is. So I'm not sure what the problem is, but it's okay. I can just put it back to 0 and it works fine. So let's go back, put it back to 0. And I click somewhere else like here or anywhere besides where I am, and it will take it. Notice how it turns kind of is that an orange color or a yellow color? Yellow indicates that it's been modified. So let's go back to the wizard and try one more time. Okay, so far so good. So what I'm going to do is click Next. Once to reset all settings to the factory except custom parameter groups like the IP address, maybe some of the other settings. So we'll just go ahead and say OK on that. And English is fine. On the motor control, sensorless vector control is the default, so we'll go with that. Nameplate data, this is sort of wrong, so I'll put the right numbers in here. Just to be consistent here, we have a 3,500 RPM motor. It's about 0.8 kW. I'll say next on that. No feedback. No braking resistor, just next on that. And here's where I can actually run the drive to test it out. So what I'll do is click on the red button, and then I'll click on the green button. And it's going to say that I cannot currently control it over Ethernet because it's not set up that way. So I'm going to tell it OK, and that will let me control it over Ethernet. But I have to be careful and reverse that before I'm finished, or maybe I want to have a remote pod or some other speed control function. So let's just say yes for now. Okay, so I hear the fan turn on. If I click stop and then start, if I key in a number here like 20, you'll see it speed up. So I can, just pick a frequency, not 620, but 60. So here I can just sort of test it, make sure that it works correctly. So I'm going to put it back to 0, and I'm going to stop it when it stops. and I'll hold down the jog button, and you can see it ramp up to 10 because the jog reference is 10. I'll let that go. I'll say, yes, that looks okay. Next. I don't have a motor connected, so I'm not really going to auto-tune. Normally, if I had a motor connected, I would do a rotate tune. And what that does is spin the shaft of the motor so that the drive can understand what the motor looks like electrically, but I'm going to skip this right now. Min max. So let's do a 30-60 on this motor. Decel time it's too slow. Let's make it 2 seconds. 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. We're going to disable reverse just because. Next, here we are. So the speed control, I have 3 choices. Speed reference 1, I'd really like that to be the drive pot, which is the keypad pot. Oh, it crashed. Well, that's not nice. Very unexpected. I'm on my laptop and didn't expect to see that. So I'm going to try to run the wizard one more time. See if it crashes on me. I'm going to skip through to that same spot. I'm hesitant to change it, but I'm going to try again. Okay, speed reference 3 is good. Speed reference 2 is good. Speed reference 1, let's make it drive pot. Okay, that worked. I don't know. That's a mystery. Don't like mysteries, but you know, software, right? So software has problems. So let's go to the next one here. We're going to boot to parameters, which means to this IP address. Let's set the IP mask on there, the subnet mask, 255 straight across. The gateway 192.168.1.1 is fine. Okay. Start source keypad. Start 2 input. Start 3 Ethernet. We're going to do a 3-wire start and a 3-wire direction on these 2. These I can just ignore, but I'm going to set them to not used. I don't want them to do anything unexpected. Okay. Okay, so that's all good. Next. Relay outputs, we're just going to leave that alone. Defaults, defaults, default. And I'm done. So if I reach over and press the start button, it's running. It's running off the keypad pot, the drive pot. It looks good. Stop work. Everything looks good. If I go to parameters and start it one more time, you can see the, let's see if we can find it here. You can watch the live parameters here, like what's really going on in the motor. So I'm trying to go up to 44 point something, and I'm at 44 point something. 60 output voltage, 215 or so, very low current, DC voltage pretty high there. Output RPM based on what I programmed in at the nameplate, the motor nameplate data. So some of this is calculating based on what I tell it. Output power is 0, overload amps. These are numbers that I plugged in. XL time, I thought I changed that to 2. Let's make it 2 seconds and 2 seconds. Let's go back and watch it run. I'm going to open it to 60 hertz. It's a lot quicker now. Okay. So, you know, depending on your mechanical load, maybe you want a slow ramp up if it's heavy, or if it's not too heavy, you know, quick. If you need it to start kind of quick, then maybe 1 second or 2 seconds. We don't want to go like half a second. That's pretty quick. And we can trip the drive, make it shut down. It does detect a lot of problems like overcurrent, under voltage, over voltage, you name it. It's looking at every parameter. And so, yeah, we don't want to push it too hard. So here's the start sources, like keypad number 1, remote IO number 2. Let's say I just really want this to be the keypad. I mean the external. What I have to do is stop it. Once I stop it, I can change it. So let's do the digital, and let's do speed reference. Start source 2 can be the keypad. That's fine. Drive pod is fine. That's fine. So let's go ahead and start it. Switches now. Let me scroll up to the top. It's still running off the little drive pod, the keypad pod. But otherwise, I might hit stop here. So I hit stop. I can scroll back down. And I'm going to change this back to keypad. I'll change this to external. I'll leave that as Ethernet. So, for example, if I was planning on talking to this drive over a network without any kind of local push buttons, I could either set start source 1 as Ethernet IP, or I could just tell it to use start source number 3 instead of number 1. So, we did a lab where we had a selector switch and we could select 1 or 2. I could just tell it 1 or 3. So I could still have my local controls if I wanted it, like the keypad controls, or I could do it all over Ethernet. So it's really whatever I would like to do. I like the idea of having local controls like push buttons, because in case the network cable gets cut or whatever, I can still technically run it if I just flip a switch and say use local controls. Speed references. Let's see if I can set them all up to the drive pod. Cancel that. And let's start. The reason I did that is because I saw an error message earlier on one of the wizards, and it was saying that you can't have the same reference for 2 different places, like 2 and 3, 1, 2, and 3, but you can. So maybe the wizard doesn't like it, but you can always go into the parameters and pretty much set up whatever you really wanted to do with it. So, maybe a basic setup with the wizard just to get it going, and then go into the parameters and make whatever changes you need. So here's input 2 and 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 outputs. Just like you've already seen this before. Down here at the bottom, we've got our IP parameters. We don't really want to change those once we set them up. Usually everything has to be at a certain location, a static IP, so we don't want to change things too much. A gateway doesn't matter a whole lot because this is a local area network. We're not trying to go out across the router. We're not trying to go on the internet. So we're just, IP, you could leave it as zeros here, or you can go ahead and set it up. We are in the 192.168.1 network, so that has to match up here. And 1 is the first address on that network, so that's where this goes, the default gateway. The rest of this, you've already seen, it's very specific to particular types of problems. So I might just scroll through the list here. It's, of course, very lengthy and very detailed, right? So that's it. So once I've got it done here, I'm basically finished. What I do is come up here and do File, save project as. I'm going to call this November 2, 2021 underscore 525 underscore 237, because that's the IP address on it. And I'll just save that. And if I wanted to, let's say that, let me get rid of this. I'm going to close this project, and I'm going to open an existing project. Yeah, I think it's in here. Let's see if I can open that project. There it is. Let's look at the parameters real quick. And what I'm going to try to do is download this to that drive. Let's see if we can double check the IPs on this. That's good there. So let's see if I can do a download. So I'll go to connect and do a download. Make sure it's Okay. I'm going to retain the, think for a second here. Let's reset the drive. I don't know why there's a difference, but we're going to reset the device. Okay, it just turned off. That's not good. Of course, it crashed on me. So what I was attempting to do there was download the parameters from my project into my drive, and it didn't go too well. Let's try one more time. Of course, it's locked up now. I'm going to try one more time. Let me restart it real quick here. Okay, it downloaded correctly that time. And let's go online. We're going to connect to it. And then we are going to run that drive. Okay, it's running. Looks correct. So I think it maybe just had a glitch there. Hard to say. Software is always kind of a headache. But that's the point of doing a connected component project. You can save the parameters. If you have to install a new drive, you can just download it into it.